All right, everybody, and welcome back to round 5 of the GenCon 2022 Regional License Exam. I'm popping back in here with Levi to get an amazing match. We've got Tim Keefe versus someone I believe you know quite well yourself, Levi.
Yeah, if any of y'all out there are familiar with some of my work, the infamous Willie T. Will Taylor himself is coming on to take down, you know him, you love him, Tim Keefe, and we've got a very interesting matchup alongside them as well. Tim Keefe is, of course, rocking Kyoka Jiro on the good symbol, so it looks like we're going to have a rerun of the Staff Strike shenanigans.
Right.
But on the other hand of things, no rerun in sight, because my boy Will is on Endeavor. And this is his famous 80 card brick of an Endeavor deck.
Oh my
And when I tell you
Lord.
this deck is insane, this deck is insane. He sits there and he builds and he builds, he builds, then suddenly everything has 1 billion damage on it, and you're just super Nomu. So obviously Tim getting on the play is going to be nice with a solid build 3. The Taiyaki coming in, of course, clutch, just like Mitchell was talking about in his round. Very, very important addition to the deck as well. And then the internship with Best Gene is going to be flipping something here, which is really, really, really powerful, actually. We have 3 really great foundations on Tim's board right now for him to flip.
It looks like we may have just skipped a check and...
Yep, looks good. So choosing to flip the Taiyaki, interesting. I think I would have flipped maybe the Destined. I don't know, that's a pretty good card in Jiro, actually.
It does get you that extra draw, and Jiro is one of those decks that sometimes just needs to see that one extra to be able to kind of close it out.
100%.
But we saw how impactful, Taiyaki Fanatic has been previously in basically controlling the entirety of what was going to happen with the board. So we'll see. I mean, if Tim Keefe foresees a quick hand, then Taiyaki's going to have like diminishing effects on the game, and you can just be able to take it out. So maybe he's just foreseeing this to kind of really push quick.
Exactly. And I mean, it's not like Will is presenting anything on the board right now that's particularly threatening. However, I could see Taiyaking a self-assured zone change that Will might have been really planning on could be really clutch. But we'll see, right? So Unwavering coming down into a rather unfortunate check, I would say, but it is Unwavering, so only one of those cards is actually committed, right? So Will presenting a small but really nice stage here. Defrosting and Self-Assured being really critical pieces to his game plan. Good value out of the Best Genius flip. And Villainous Entrance is actually one of the really pivotal cards in this deck. This is a very, very stun-focused deck. The goal of it is very much to build a massive stage and then nuke it all in a massive attack turn with Frozen and other instances of Turn to Dust, stun 2, Villainous Entrance, stun 1, Touch of Decay, stun 1. Just kind of going along, eventually committing your whole board out and making these 10, 12, 15 damage moves just unblockable. And if you're noticing the unique way that Will is posturing his discard pile, the sideways card is to mark the start of a new group of cards for Endeavor's +1 damage intervals.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So for those unfamiliar with Endeavor, he is a really, really, really powerful character. He just simply takes a while to get going. Endeavor is one of those grinders of a character with a response that lets you pick up attacks whenever you've taken 5 or more damage, and then giving your damage pumps of +1 for every 6 cards in the discard pile to your non-throw attacks.
Which is why it's a brick of 80 cards.
Which is why it's a brick of 80 cards, because the second you cycle, you can't do anything.
Right.
The second you cycle, all of your hard work is gone.
It's that Shoto 1 kind of curse where it's just like your entire game plan gets completely reset upon a recycle.
Yep. Very fitting that this curse seems to run in the family, if you will. So I think we're probably going to see another strong build turn on Will's end. Putting the second defrosting down is pretty huge. The League interview, another really integral piece, of course, that discards the top 2 cards of your deck in Endeavor. It's about everything he wants to do, really. So, and then if you look at the dice next to Will's discard pile, that marks every stack of 6 cards in the discard pile. So we're at 2 of them right now for +2 to everything. And that's certainly going to get higher and higher the more attacks that Tim sends at him, and the more foundations that Will himself plays. So Endeavor's kind of nice in that sense, where you can do these build and pass turns, because if your opponent really starts to go in on you, you can simply commit his face to just pick up whatever block you need, or just sculpt for the next turn as well. So Tim not playing into that in the slightest, going for another very smooth build turn himself. Now it really just kind of depends on what Will's hand looks like from here, right? Whether it's time to go in or not. So opting to instead just get even more key pivotal foundation pieces on the board, and also leaving himself in a nice defensive spot as well. You know, the self-assured and the ice storm in hand, a very very infamous fire symbol combination right there. You'd love to see it, while at the same time avoiding deadlock. Because 2 quick creates on board, pretty much posture.
Hurts.
Yeah, that 100% postures a game that you cannot go to deadlock against.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, and we've seen this in the previous games where, Staff Strike Jiro, just depending on the hand that Tim gets, will very much dictate the kinds of turns that he's out to get. So at one point, we are going to see the deck provide him with all the orange he needs to say, all right, now just see if you can run it.
100%. Yeah, this deck is really a matter of you build until you draw Staff Strike.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely good Jiro's general game plan. And that's pretty easy when the vast majority of the cards in your deck say draw a card.
Yep.
It's pretty tough to not see it. You know?
Yeah, 100%, especially with the good symbol, which provides you that kind of combo where you can pass in a torch, then you can use an unwavering, get a passing the torch. It's something that the other symbols kind of lack, like a really good commit ability, and here in good, it just provides you kind of that depth to be able to go and dig even deeper.
Absolutely. You know, the digging and digging and digging until you find your perfect your combos and your equations.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that being the trade-off that you obtain from moving from between Momo and Jiro.
Of course.
Staff decks. Momo obviously making him a lot more consistent, being able to pick up any weapon you need, namely Staff Strike itself when you can't find it. But Jiro, of course, putting out much more threatening Staff Strike turns.
Mm-hmm.
When the Unwavering start coming in with +6, +6, +8, +8, things get so out of hand so very, very, very fast. As opposed to Momo, who's a lot more reliant on certain moves to present meaningful damage. In Jiro, everything, and I mean everything, is meaningful damage. So it looks like we're going back and forth on the quick create here, trying to figure out how we're going to set up this turn. Very much seeing the infamous Tim Keefe stance right here. The hand has been put face down on the table. The hands are on the hips, and the foot is tapping.
Yeah.
We are very much calculating and analyzing the opponent's board state and how bad things can get from here.
Mm-hmm. The trigonometry is floating in the air as he's doing it, and he's mapping it out.
Absolutely. The infamous Tim Keefe look. We are viewing it right here live. So it looks like as Endeavor, we're choosing to eat this attack, eating this big 5 damage move, and responding to go ahead and pick up our Touch of Decay beautifully. You know, that's, you know, as much as we have the Ice Storm in hand, this is not the one you want to Ice Storm block with, simply because we know the Foundation is coming.
Yeah.
Right. If this attack is if this turn is gonna get scary, it's gonna be Foundation into Staff Strike, or even into Capture Net. Which I think is why we saw Tim go back and forth on the quick creation play, right? Because if we quick create to put a Foundation in so we can play our Staff Strike next, we get Breaker 2 block on an 8 with Breaker 2. That's not attractive.
No,
that is not an attractive prospect. But no, unfortunately, there's our Staff Strike. In the discard pile is our check. Advice for Winners is going to give us a second check, though, and make it not so bad after all.
Yeah, turns out the advice is just do better.
The advice is just check better.
Yep.
The check diff is palpable here. So coming in with +3/+3 because Jiro exists. But Lineage responding to the damage buff for a quick -3 speed. Certainly posturing an easy block here for Will, putting it back down to a 2-speed low attack. And it's extremely possible that we might see the self-assured play here. To go ahead and make it. Yep. So there's the self-assured. Looks like we're gonna more than likely make this a mid-attack, given the color of the card put over the capturing net there. And this is the one that it seems like we're looking to Ice Storm block here. Makes sense. You know, you pretty much tell them you cannot quick create this one up and get your free Foundations in. A really, really interesting mind game the two of them are playing right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a back and forth between kind of presenting opportunities and see, do they bite? And upon the bite, you know, really going down that rabbit hole. So it's a game of patience, I think. And whoever, I think, can recognize the best opening is going to be able to kind of break it open. Because they both have a ton of resources. They both have a lot of effects that are able to mitigate what both of them are trying to do.
Ooh,
so
we get a peek.
Yeah.
If we find a 5 here, could the Staff Strike be coming?
Could. I mean, it's a good position to do so. There it is.
On a 9. Yep. On a 9, checking the 5. Beautiful. You love to see it.
8 and the 9.
Well, we only have 3 foundations up at this point now, though.
Yep.
So depending on what's coming, like is Tim trying to present lethal this turn is the question.
I feel more so. Well, first off, because it's Jiro, I mean, the attacks will get stupidly big, and there's a potential where it's half health damage, half health damage. But realistically, I think it's more so just putting Will in a position where he's going to feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Back to the wall, and then he won't have the freedom and comfort to play out as, either aggressively or loosely, which means that the longer that goes, the tempo's on Tim's side. He's going to be able to take advantage of that positioning more and more.
Absolutely. So we're seeing all 3 quick creates come in to bring all 3 of these foundations in, resulting in a draw 4 off of the staff strike very, very shortly.
And that's such a massive board that Jiro's just going to, here's a plus, 8?
Yeah. Board is massive. 100%. And we've seen double defrosting come in for the minus speed and plus damage. So we're definitely posturing to block this as Will.
There we are.
The second ice from on an 8, it looks like. Beautifully checking the 5. Although at this point, 3 or 5, I don't think any more moves are blockable.
That's about it at this point.
Another breaker 2 coming in. So this could actually be scary, depending on what we jam down and what we check. So I think I'm looking at the Cannon Blast in Tim's hand here. At the same time, though, unless we can chain into another staff strike, which we did just draw 4 cards, so it's not impossible that
they could be there.
I know that there are at least 2 in the discard pile because I'm looking at 1 right now.
Yep.
And then we checked 1 quite a bit earlier. The capture net's going to be on a 4, checking a 3, so not super worried about it. We're going to get to build something down here as well, which is really, really, really nice. Possibly even the self-sacrifice that could get us there.
Self-sac could get us there. I mean, if we need to draw into something else, we could bring down passing.
Right. Yeah, so the stun 2 coming in, everything very, very, very unblockable at this point. This is going to be, a 12 damage move with +8/+8 on it, so it's very unblockable. 12 damage move. Looks like the Destined came down, and we flipped and found a Specialist of Sound on top of our deck, giving us all the leeway in the world.
All right.
This is just going to be a very, very cannon for game.
Yep, going down to 13, and then follow up.
It gains +9/+9. Without any enhances, this cannon is extremely lethal.
And that's what you were saying, how Momo's more consistent. But Momo doesn't have the fact that every single attack once we get to Staff Strike is effectively just +7/+7.
Yeah.
Before you even need to push even more resources into the attack itself.
Yeah, they are all just at minimum 10 damage moves, and that level of stat gain is just absolutely crazy. So we're gonna see Will go into the sideboard here. He's got a couple things we could work with. Fulfilled duties. Certainly, all 4 of those are coming in. Oh, no question.
Yeah, anytime you're going up against Staff Striking, you can just prevent them. No, you know what? How about you don't pop off?
Absolutely.
You put yourself in a really good spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that for a while, Will actually had Ito 1 in his sideboard as well.
Okay.
Which is a pretty sus choice.
Sus.
But it would actually be really pivotal here if he can just draw fulfilled duties all day.
Yeah, of course. Because just I'll just shut you down now.
yeah. I think no Staff Strike. I mean, it's still going to be a pivotal card, right? Being able to deny the setup of any future combos past the Staff Strike with things like Quick Creation and Destined and Jiro checking the tops and all that. And also just denying the draw off of Staff Strike, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we saw get Tim Keefe there, right? Was quick create, draw 4.
Yeah, whereas if you just stop it there, you're basically forcing your opponent into the most suboptimal variance of their lines.
Yeah.
Because they're going to get 1 proc. So sure, he gets the decision between drawing cards or being able to make his weapons not check as badly, but it's just it presents a situation where it's okay, I need to go through literally the worst sequencing I can before trying to reoptimize my game plan.
Yeah, and it just stops a lot of advantage that Staff Strike generates, and that's really what makes it crazy, right? Because in a perfect world, you got to draw all of these cards just in the same hand to pop off with.
Yeah.
But you can go, Weapon Foundation, Staff Strike with nothing else, and then suddenly you have 4 or 5 new cards in your hand, and the entire texture of your turn changes.
Precisely.
So I'm sure we have a plethora of good options to side out in our 80 card Endeavor deck. So I'm very excited to see, what do you think there's anything that Will needs to do differently to avoid a game like that again?
I don't even think this was a Will factor going
Agreed.
through game one. I think
agree.
Jiro did what Jiro did. I think Will mitigated just fine. I think he spent a lot of turns to build up and give himself the amount of resources he would need to hopefully be able to present some blocks and mitigate the damage. But when the pop off happens, it just kind of happens.
Yeah. When you find the correct sequence of cards, it's a hard combo deck, and Will is just not playing a deck that has any interference in these combos whatsoever.
I mean, just fire doesn't
yeah.
provide you a lot of like ways to really shut down.
There are
the
no
kind of things
control options.
Yeah, no.
right?
So you have some of the Eda stuff, which we're, like you said, most likely going to see come in and have an
Absolutely.
impact. But it's very limited in scope in how you can really impact what your opponent is doing on the front.
It's all just very minimal. It's nothing on the levels of things like Toru or Kurogiri, right? Best thing you can do is like fulfill duties with Eda 1 if you're really hopeful.
If you're really digging into that,
forcing surrender is also an okay option
That's fine.
in this type of matchup. But if your opponent's smart, their first enhance would be combo enhance, and you're not actually shutting anything pivotal down there. Again, you're just making their lines slightly worse. And when you're being heavily overkilled regardless, that's just not the kind of impact that's going to drastically change.
Yeah, because solid optimal lines or not, you're still being, swung at with like a 6 for 8 or 6 for 9. And you're like,
The Jiro player is still presenting, 50,
just raw numbers,
60 damage
just
on board.
Raw
you
number.
Can't do anything about. And unfortunately for Will, his deck just isn't really one that can try and put on early game pressure, right? It's Endeavor. It's the exact opposite of that. Very much wants to build and build and build, block and block and block, set up his discard pile for a massive backswing turn, which sadly is something that a Staff Strike Jiro deck is very comfortable doing. You're gonna let me build until I finally draw Staff Strike? That sounds fantastic.
Cool.
That is the we talked about it in the previous round with Kamui and Sue. This is the game state Jiro wants to really participate in.
Let me sculpt.
Yeah, let me sculpt, right? When you pressure Jiro very early on, and it's like, okay, well, crap, I got to go in right now with my Staff Strike on my 4 foundations. Pray I don't check that 3 on my 8, It's a very polarizing situation like that. So, if anything, we might see Will try and shift gears a little, even though his character doesn't support it, might try and put on a little bit of early game pressure. Because I think if we just let Tim coast again like that, it's probably just going to eventually end up the exact same way.
Yeah, it's just a tough spot based on the longevity, long game that Endeavor's trying to play.
Yeah.
So Will is definitely stuck between a rock and a hard place here. So maybe there'll be an opportunity for him to kind of put Jiro on that back foot, not enough to present lethal, but enough to be like, okay, if I'm not careful though, a couple of big hits might be able to get me.
Right. Of course, and I mean, in Will's defense, it also doesn't help that he's up against Tim Keefe.
Yeah, I mean,
one of the most decorated players in the entire game or something like that.
Something like that.
I heard he did pretty well in the Vegas regional last
season. Yeah, he did okay. I think he was in the single digit placements or something.
Yeah. I think he at least tops for sure.
At least, minimum.
He got there, and we're very much seeing experience like that come into play in a matchup like this. Jiro, as raw numbers, big stats, in your face as Jiro is, this is very much the gentleman's Jiro deck. The sequencing and the lines are so careful and meticulous. And I think we saw a perfect example of that in game 1, where Tim was going back and forth about the quick creation, realizing that he might have to play a Staff Strike on an 8 and check a 1 when he runs into breaker 2. And we saw him avoid just that, much to Will's dismay. So Tim looking like a pretty healthy stage he's got here. The Unwavering coming down. We're going to bring in our quick creates and start setting up stuff like that. However, the fulfilled duties is on board. We got to be wary of it. We have to be very, very wary of it, At the same time, Will's got to make sure he uses it correctly. There's a world where I could be tempted to just jam it right now and stop Tim from doing a million other buttons on his Unwavering Slash, on his Jiro, on his cards on board, readying things, drawing cards, all kinds of stuff
just
like that.
Basically setting up. Yeah. Right? The different phases in which you decide to interrupt his enhancements or which card you decide to say no, we're going to stop that here, is kind of do I not want him to set up? Do I want him to start committing to his combo and just being suboptimal from that point on, right?
Right.
Depending on whether we're 1 card deep, 3 cards deep, or even potentially at the end, in where we want to utilize, shutting down the enhancement step could make a huge difference.
Yeah, but I think, we're going to see Will show a lot of restraint, say that fulfill duties for when it really, and I mean really, 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 really counts. Stopping it from getting really, really important things like the card draws on Staff Strike, and setting up the future weapon attacks past it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to see him be very chill here. So, as far as his general game plan goes here, it's a tough spot to be in, because we're not going to put meaningful damage on our moves quite just yet, and also one of the things that the fire symbol as a whole, but especially Endeavor struggles against, is speed reduction. Right? Fire has very little speed pump. Endeavor is nothing but damage pump. That's why the deck is so reliant on stun, because the moves are all very, very slow.
Yeah.
But if you eventually commit them out, the attacks are unblockable anyway. And the double specialist of sound that he's staring at right now is going to make it really hard to go in. So I wonder if we're going to see the Staff Strike here. The Staff Strike
there
on the
it
8,
is.
Checking the 3, so we have to fully commit out for it. I mean, I think it's just worth it though, right?
For it to then just be like fulfilled.
I mean, you get it out the way, right?
You do need to clear it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
You 100% need to clear it at some point, but I feel iffy about that one, man.
Yeah.
Just because like you get it out of the way, yeah, because you get it out of the way, but then like how good's your follow up, right? And if his follow up is just mediocre,
right,
then it's not worth it. Especially considering like Will can just find another one.
Right. Tim immediately realized not to take the momentum as he just stared down a capture evildoer's block.
Yep. We'll put that here.
Yep. A beautiful GenCon promo capture evildoers,
absolutely
if I
gorgeous.
might add. We're definitely seeing a lot of those in this deck so far. The fire symbol being on 3 out of 5 of the GenCon promos. They're definitely spreading a lot of golden love to the fire symbol here. Speaking of golden love, this XSR Nitro Ignition Explosion is coming down hot.
You and your crew love to flex, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Have you seen my Eraserhead deck?
It's been a minute. I'm sure it's been updated quite well since the last regionals.
There are 2 non-XR cards in that deck. Yeah, and as far as I mean, I can attest. I've been on this journey with Will's Endeavor deck here, and it is one of the shiniest decks I have ever seen. I think in the main deck there are 5 non-XR cards.
Okay,
which in an 80 card deck is pretty crazy.
It's significant.
He's even got the ones that don't matter, right? Like the defrostings that look almost no different.
Yeah.
Oh, they're all XR. You know it. You know they're all XR. You know it. It's a whole lot of commitment. I think the only one he's missing now is the Ice Storms, because those are
Ice Storms, yeah.
Right. Yeah. XR Ice Storms are XR Ice Storms.
Yep.
But we are simply jamming down more secret rares into our card pool here.
Yep.
So obviously Nitro Explosion to Nitro Explosion, really, 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 really powerful. We're seeing Tim just not care, taking the minimal amounts of damage here, kind of posturing that he just has really good moves in his hand, which I have to imagine we had some weapon attacks in our hand as we tried to play our Staff Strike. So even though it's under a different symbol, we're kind of seeing the classic Jiro style of, yeah, these moves just kill you next turn, so I'm going to take all the damage in the world.
Yeah, it's first learning Jiro is very interesting. Between the Wesley Bittners of the world, that was just. Yeah, it turns out these players are just face tanking, because they're like, it really doesn't matter as long as I can like sculpt and script up my combo turn.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You have to imagine that there's a lot of gas in that hand that we just simply don't want to get rid of. However, we did sap the speed on this one, so it looks like we are finally posturing a block. However, Let's Vet Bad Guys is going to attempt to change that on the double, moving us from out of the negatives all the way back into the positives, where we deserve to be. And honestly, if Will can get this damage in, it's going to put him in a pretty good spot, especially after that powerful granted by the other Nitro Ignition. It's going to put him in a pretty nice spot here. So it looks like this is on a 5, 6, 7, 8. Checking a 5, maybe it was on a 7. No, it was on 8. It was on 8. There's our commit 3 for it. If we can get a big move in now, the Tension Decay is going to be a big one. Not the check we want to see by any means, but this is going to put some meaningful damage in and also probably draw us cards if it hits. Looks like we're opting not to Specialist of Sound it, posturing no block from Tim Keefe. Once again, the hand is face down on the table. The hands are on the hips. There are gears turning in Tim Keefe's mind right now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the look. It's the one that he gave last game before kind of bringing it together. And at this point, he's probably just analyzing how much of my hand do I need to keep. You know, how much is Will roughly presenting me, and if I keep going, yeah,
right.
Do I keep this cannon? Do I not keep it?
Right.
Is it going to be pivotal to me closing out the game next turn?
Yep. We did, however, combo enhance in such a case, so it is going to pick itself back up to be able to jam down once again. Nitro responding for momentum, very, very cool as well.
Very hot.
Checking our XR, Arrogant Disposition.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, at the end of the day, we are now just getting things out of Tim's hand here. The stun one coming in with a double it can't be fixed response. Definitely showing that we simply don't care. We're going in regardless. We're going to deal with them. I mean, there's so much stun in this Endeavor deck that it can't be fixed is sadly a card that you have to just deal with eventually. You have to accept that you are giving them the free foundation. But the Nitro is going to come in and respond, get a momentum, give it powerful it up. And if we can get this one through, it's going to put one on a pretty nice spot. You know, obviously drawing more cards, replacing all of those attacks that we played throughout this whole turn. To eventually get that 8 damage in, I believe. Heroic Lineage coming down.
Nice.
Really, really, really good defensive piece, as well as a Forcing Surrender, like I was talking about earlier. Really, really good tech piece. You know, we've got the Forcing Surrender. We've got the Fulfilled Duties. We're going to be able to interact with Tim's plans a little bit this turn, which is definitely the thing that we were lacking on our last turn, right? We've also got our discard pile going nice and healthy here.
True.
You know, a couple blocks are going to bring that to +4 damage and everything next turn, which at 14 health could put Tim in a vulnerable position. It just depends how hard he's mapped out this turn. You know, we sacrificed a Cannon Blast, and we sacrificed a Capture Net last turn. So 2 really, really nice weapon attacks that could spell doom on this turn. So let's see how he goes into his aggression here without those in hand.
Yeah, it's being at 14 health now, he's in a position where, you know, Tim can't really go all out unless knowing for sure that he's going to be able to take out Will, because it's a very similar situation that we've seen in earlier games where you can't just leave your opponent at 1. You can't just leave your opponent at a life total in which he can crack back. So now it's going to be potentially a little bit of that poke game, get a little bit of advantage, work my way up into a place where maybe I can get you, but I'm going to have to play slower unless I draw the absolute nuts.
Absolutely, yeah. So it feels like it really is just a matter of what did Tim find this turn and how big are things going to get. So we're discarding Quick Create to build it immediately in. Love that for Unwavering Slash, honestly. And we're going to draw our card as well without ready anything. So there's a little bit of a glare, but I believe we have a Preparing for Battle on the board. And we just ready one and drew a card without committing that to discard a card and draw a card. Meaning we do not want that filter in Tim's hand right now.
Yep.
Posturing that this hand is pretty violent. So I think we're gonna see some craziness coming from Tim's end right here. However, we're gonna have to deal with Breaker 1 there. Looks like we're peeping the drop zone to either see attacks and or count it to see how scary Endeavor's damage pumps are getting on the following turn. You know, between his blocks and his review and his checks here, probably reaching +4 damage on everything next turn, which is definitely frightful. You know, it's certainly frightful. You know, it's getting to the point where it's damage pumps that can't be ignored in the slightest. Okay. So no Staff Strike coming in, simply opting to go for a build here. Looks like we're holding 3 with triple Specialist of Sound, so could come down to the zones here.
Could, very much.
That is kind of the scary thing about Endeavor is once he gets to that really late game state, blocking him is very Shigaraki and Nomu style. It kind of has to be a perfect block or you're going to be taking a big chunk on the half. But it looks like Will not exactly finding the orange he needs and simply opting for a build 2, forcing Tim to flip one of his foundations with the best Genist haircut and just setting up the discard pile more. Once again, stopping right at 10. It looks like not wanting to offer him any quick create deadlock enhances naturally,
of course.
You know, especially in good Jiro, it's absolutely not allowed. Your Unwavering comes in with +6/+6. You first enhance, make it a 24 for 24. Or a 22 for 22. You know, the damage pumping being responses feels like it was really, really made with Jiro in mind. but almost made without Jiro in mind, depending on how you want to posture the question, I think.
So looking through, basing the options.
Trying to get a good read, or maybe on what his block zones might be. That's kind of the nice thing about Fire in this matchup is Fire's block zones are abysmal, but they have some of the best mid blocks available to them.
Absolutely.
And everything in a weapon / staff strike deck is very, very mid.
It's very mid.
Except for this cannon. This cannon's big.
Yeah.
This cannon's a big old thing. So, cannon coming in with stats, it's only going to get even bigger. And this is where Jiro really puts that pressure on you, right? Because the thing about Jiro is you want to take like the first and maybe even the second attack out of respect for how big and scary the following ones will be after that. But Cannon really turns that on its head because it can get so big it feels crazy not to block the, the 10, 12 damage move, right? It feels crazy not to block it, but then you die to the 20, 30 damage move, right? So it looks like we opted to do none of that and instead fulfilled duties, stopping the Cannon from getting any scarier, and then going for the Endeavor pickup here, really wanting our Ice Storm. So I cannot disagree with that play here.
Of course.
Wanting to stop the Cannon right at its 6 damage so that we can simply take it there, not allow him any further enhances, and safely commit to grab our Ice Storm so we can have the pressure of that Breaker 2. Possibly some of our only leverage in a matchup like this.
Yeah, it is representing almost the fact that, like, Will here reading that, Tim starting with Cannon, odds are means not the greatest starter hand to go. And such, closing this down prevents Tim the opportunity to be able to dig himself out of and into a position where he'll feel more comfortable with his hand.
Exactly. It's also possible that we put an attack on top of our deck, as we did,
there we
hoping
go.
to pick it up with Desinformation of Success before our enhanced step ended. But the Staff Strike is coming down regardless on the beautiful, beautiful 5 check. And this is where things are going to start to get scary. It's going to pick up a lot of speed with Jiro's responses, and things are only going to get worse from there. We have a lot of damage pump on board. We have a lot of scouting on board. We do have a foundation in our discard pile, so we can bring that in with a quick create and then draw our 2 cards. However, we do have the forcing surrender as well, right? So we're seeing a really, really cool play here from Will, where the defrosting goes -1 speed +2 damage, and then you respond to the damage pump with lineage for another -3 speed. So -4 in total, very, very cool, making this Staff Strike super duper blockable. Which is obviously where we're going to want to put our Breaker 1 in. If I was Will right now, we need to flip Forcing Surrender right now and deny a draw to Tim by taking one of those foundations out, and also denying future stats to his cards as well, right? Clearing Jiro's card pool is always great, really, because even if you're helping her a little bit along the way, right now it's not a matter of helping her because everything is ignoring progressive, and so you're really just denying some of the stats, and in this case the Staff Strike draws. But it looks like we're opting to let Tim draw the 3. Seems like we're not worried about it. Possibly keeping in mind a capture net or something like that. Right. That could come in at the end. Potentially, if there's only one foundation behind it, we can we can shut off stuff like that. So there's the Ice Storm block coming in, of course, checking perfectly. And the Breaker 2 is hopefully going to be relevant for Will here. He really needs Tim to start finding some 3s on top of the deck. So without progressive, that is his only hope of keeping that board committed down, especially if he's looking to play another Staff Strike. And that's when this deck really gets out of hand. Staff Strike into weapon into Staff Strike is where things just start getting malicious.
Oh yeah, that's where we're getting into 12 card pools.
Yeah,
and it's just at this point it's really hard to distinct where we're at.
Yeah. At that point you're just dying to one move every time. So taking a peek, only having to commit one thing here on the 3. Really, really good stuff. Tim going to even be able to build down the advice for winners. Really, 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 really strong to continue the future of his turn. So there's the stun 2 coming in. So right now this is looking like an 8 low for 12. So there's a world where we can posture a block on this. It's certainly possible. And then if we do, we tell Tim he has to have another Staff Strike, basically, right?
Yeah.
Because then one more move does not kill us. It's not getting to 24. It'll get big, but not 24. And you're not playing another move past that on progressive difficulty.
God, no.
So this is possibly not death for Will. Because I think even another cannon doesn't get to 24.
No?
It would get +7. +7. No, I don't think it gets to 24.
Okay, okay.
No, not without any outside damage pump. Even with its own damage pump, I don't think it would get to 24. That would posture a lot. So we're going for the 8, 9, 10, 11. Checking the 3. Unfortunately, being what 2 foundations shy of being able to pass that. So we're taking the 10 damage, and there's the cannon. And now this cannon is definitely getting to 14, which is more than likely going to posture a very, very lethal move here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a world where Will's going to be able to block this cannon. After it gets all of its stat buffs, it's going to be the definition of a one-shot move.
Yep. No, it's just what Jiro does, and it's what we've been, posturing to. It's just that the card just does numbers, and these checks just not doing it for Will.
Yeah, I mean that was a block on what a 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Sadly, Will knew that there was not a world where he was gonna be able to stop that move. We had to get that block on the capture net. Definitely could have changed the texture of the turn a lot, but unfortunately, the checks were not on Will's side, and Tim Keefe was able to just get there. Again, the combination of a very skilled player and fate being on his side.
Yeah.
Sadly, brought Willie T's run with Endeavor to another loss.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, tough spot for Will. The deck just lines up really tough in his matchup because, like we've said, he wants to go long. He wants to be able to play that game where he's going to be able to deal that massive damage once a good chunk of his deck is in there. But unfortunately, that gives the deck that wants to combo the time to be able to build out that perfect hand. And then it's just, at that point, the onus is on Will to, how do I sculpt a perfect defensive hand to get to the late game, but also work towards, actually being able to win the game. And it's asking a lot from kind of the deck that don't allow that dynamic.
No, it certainly don't allow that, and it is just not very feasible to sculpt your kill turn while also trying to stave off, your 10 lows for 12, and your 19 highs for 28,000 million. when good Jiro finds what she needs to find, it's simply hard for any deck to stave off that level of offense.
Yeah,
and that is what brought Tim to a victory. But speaking of Tim's victory, we're going to get him in this seat for a second for a quick little interview about why he's changed tact from the bird, right?
Right.
Hear Tim spill it all very, very soon, guys. We'll be right back.
And welcome back, everybody. And I'm here with the one and only Tim Keefe. Tim, how are you feeling after that round?
All right. The deck did more of what it was supposed to do. Had a couple rough rounds here, but, we're 3-2. We're going to try to win out and make top cuts.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, still an opportunity if you can rip it through. You've definitely been able to show that you can rip them with the best of them here today. So not Bird, but this time Jiro. What's the reason behind the Jiro pivot for this time's regional?
So I was expecting a lot of Kirishimas and a lot of Momos.
Very fair.
And Kirishima's not unwinnable for Bird, but it's kind of tough because you very often barely kill 6-handers with that deck, and Kirishima says you don't even get to do that.
Right.
And his attack harassment is kind of hard for you to deal with. It's just tough. And then Momo is a deck that he can't actually get over in a long game. And a lot of you can if you have a good enough hand, but it's like an uphill fight. I think they're both 20, 30, 35% types of matches. It just felt silly to play a deck into a field that I think that most of my a lot of the field anyway is going to be stuff that's bad for me. So. I was looking for something that could get up and over those decks, and Staff Strike attacks and good Jiro get huge.
They get absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that we had noticed as we were playing is even if just off the cuff you're just playing the attack, is still sending a 12-12 to your opponent for them to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, going into the Endeavor matchup, is there anything that changed specifically with the game plan? Endeavor leaning to be a bit more of a slower deck, which kind of gave you the opportunity to kind of sculpt it up. What was your mentality going into the matchup specifically?
Yeah, I was pretty sure it was going to be a fire deck. I wasn't quite sure exactly what sort of thing it was going to be. Touch of the case pretty good in that deck. The defense in that good list is a little bit iffy. So I was kind of glad to face a deck that doesn't. It's going to take some time to get going.
Right.
But he's like Willie said, he's a very honest character, so it was kind of just all right, well, if he's just attacking and blocking, we'll figure this out at some point. The fulfilled my duty was a bit troubling, right? I was all right, well, I probably won't be able to draw off the Staff Strike unless I can bait this out, and I don't know if I'm going to need to draw off the Staff Strike or not. So So we had to play around that a little bit. Couldn't find Taiyaki for it. I think I flipped that early on in that game or something because I didn't realize that Fulfilled was going to be there.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So going into the next few rounds leading to the end of Swiss, is there any matchups that you're really trying to fade, or anything specific that you're hoping to play into to wrap up the day?
Any like super aggressive decks can kind of coin flip this thing if I don't draw a special sound, especially if I don't draw my card draw.
Right.
So it doesn't have any bad matchups because it can kill anything, and it's at least going to coin flip the aggro decks, right? But just kind of hoping to keep running like a little bit more like that match ran, and maybe a little bit less like some of my other matches ran, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks again for spending some time with us, and best of luck with your future rounds to close out the day.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.